Hi guys, today I want to talk to you about dog treats. Now, this is quite literally the number one question that I get. Every time I post a video of me working with a dog, I get questions about what kinds of treats I'm using or why I'm using those or something along the lines of that. So, I've needed to do this video for a while to share with you just my favorite kinds of treats, why I use them, when I might use them, and then just how to choose a good training treat because the treats that you use for training your dog do make a big impact in how successful your training is. What I do want to say really quick though is it is not the only thing, or quite possibly even the most important thing in setting your dog up for success. So while choosing a good treat or the right treat for the job is imperative. How you use that treat and your training skills is actually just as or equally important as the treats that you're using. And that's something we're going to start talking about in a couple of weeks when our next workshop starts. We're going to have a free 4-part workshop starting the end of the month, and it's going to be all about training skills for owner trainers so that you can become a better trainer and better utilize whatever treats it is that your dog does like. So, before we get started with the treats I use, let's just go over really quick what makes for a good treat. So, first, it's ideally going to be small. So, we want the treat, generally, the rule of thumb is we want the treat to be as small as you can get away with. And that is so that you can give more treats more quickly without your dog either getting sick or getting full or getting disinterested or having to chew too long in between each repetition. So sometimes I will see people reinforcing a small dog, for example, with like a milk bone. And it takes them a really long time to eat that milk bone. And so then it slows the training process down. So we want the treats, generally speaking, to be as small as we can get away with. However, they also need to be easy to handle. So if you can't handle a treat past a certain, size, then we need to choose something that's going to work for you. And that is one of the ways I choose my treats based on how easy that treat is for me to handle. Your dog needs to work for it. So if it's not something your dog likes, it doesn't make for a good training treat, right? And it needs to be the right value for what you're doing. So one of the things I have all of my Academy members do, all the students who come to me, is to really make a list of all the things that your dog finds reinforcing and then all the things that your dog finds distracting. And when I say things he finds reinforcing, I don't mean you just lump it in as dog treats or food. You break it down. Pepperoni, Zooks, chicken, dog food, all of it, you really, really break it down. Okay, and that way you can choose the treat best in alignment with whatever it is that you're working on. So if I am working in my living room on something easy and there's not a lot going on and there are no distractions, I am not going to reinforce my dog with something too high value, like hot dogs. I'm going to start with something lower value, like maybe dog food, which we'll talk about here in a moment, right? But then if I go out into public and there are going to be lots of distractions and maybe I have a novice dog, then I'm going to choose a higher value treat. So it's important that the treat that we use match the difficulty of what we're asking or the task that we're asking the dog to do or the distractions that are around, something like that. But most importantly, what you have to always remember about choosing a reinforcer of any kind is that your dog gets to decide if it's a reinforcer. You do not. Only your dog gets to decide if something is reinforcing, right? So you may come into my house and you want to reinforce me with something, right? And so you give me like a brownie with nuts in it, thinking, oh, Kate will love this. I know she loves chocolate, and you give me a brownie with nuts in it. But I don't really like nuts in the brownies, okay? That's just me. But I know other people who love nuts in the brownies. So it's really going to depend, right? So I have a couple dogs in my home. They will literally eat anything. I can use carrots as reinforcers, and they're thrilled as can be. I also have dogs in my home who will not touch a carrot with a 6-foot pole. Like, I try to hand them a carrot, they look at me like I'm trying to poison them, right? So only our dogs get to decide what is reinforcing. We don't. So I see this all the time. People say, well, I tried reinforcing and it didn't work. Well, then what you were using wasn't a reinforcer for your dog. And this is very individual. This is very something that depends on the dog. So then let's talk about the treats that I do use, right? So the treats that for me fall into these categories. So the first one is dog food. I use dog food really regularly in my training. It's my number one training treat. If you see a video of me training in my home, in my training facility, or on my property, I am 99% sure I'm using dog food. There's only one dog I would reach for something else with. So if we're in my home, in my training facility, on my property, I'm just using dog food. And with a lot of my dogs, I may just be using dog food off the property as well. So for me, I really like to use my dog's meals to train. This doesn't work for every dog. This doesn't work among high distractions for a new dog or a novice dog. Perhaps it depends. This is what I mean by it depends on the dog. Okay, so Leo will take dog food anywhere. Other dogs in my home, they're like, oh, that's not good enough, something like that. So in the learning process, it's important that we match the reinforcer we're using with what we're asking the dog to do, right? And then as they become more advanced, we usually can change it around. So my advanced service dogs, for example, the fully trained ones, they're usually just working for dog food in public, even though those same dogs needed hot dogs to work in public when they were first learning. So I use dog food a lot. This is the dog food that I use for training. This is not actually the dog food that I feed anymore, but this is Diamond Naturals large dog or large breed or something. But I like this because you can see the size of the kibble. So it's also a disc shape, and for me, this is really easy to handle. So this is small enough that, especially with my lab-sized dogs or medium-sized dogs, it's small enough that they don't get full too quickly, they can eat them fast, but it's still big enough that it's very easy for me to handle. And so that's the dog food that I use primarily for training. With my tiny dogs, I may use a smaller dog food. But when they start to get much smaller than this, I have trouble handling them. And if my mechanics get sloppy, that's also going to slow down our training. I also use dehydrated meat a lot. So there are a whole bunch of varieties, different types of treats that you can buy for this. This is the brand I tend to use, Bravo. This is a trail mix variety. So this has cheese, chicken, I think it has like 4 or 5 different, so it has bison, beef, hot dogs, turkey, and I think there's, and cheddar cheese in here. So this is one that I use a lot because I can get them anywhere, and I find they also have pretty decent sized chunks inside where they're not too big, because some of the dehydrated food or treats that you will find on the market, dehydrated or freeze-dried, I'm trying to open this bag, some of them are really quite large, and so I find that to be difficult. These come in a variety of sizes, but generally there's a bunch that are about this size, which is again a really nice size for training. These I will use when we're in public, when I'm looking for something not too messy, like hot dogs can be kind of slimy. I also keep a couple bags of these in my car and one in my training bag at all times, so I always have these as a backup treat. So I do use these a lot, and you can get these like on Chewy.com. You can get these on the internet in a bunch of places. I also use soft training treats like Zooks quite often, although honestly, not as often as I use the dehydrated meat, just because I find this easier to train with. But these are the Zooks, so you see these everywhere. They're a nice little size for training. They come in a variety of flavors, which I find really helpful. So they do have chicken, but if you have a pickier eater, for example, they have like a rabbit, and they have like a fish, and they have a peanut butter. And so they have a bunch of different flavors that, depending on your dog, he may prefer a certain flavor over another. And that's where, like I said, it really depends on your dog, what they like best. I also definitely will use things like chicken, cheese, or hot dogs. Now, this is something I'm definitely going to save only for really difficult scenarios. I will not pull out chicken, cheese, or hot dogs in my living room. I just will not. The only exception to that would be real life tasks. So I may have pre-cut up hot dogs in my fridge so that when a new service dog starts tasking throughout the day for real life, I can really reinforce that really heavily. But other than tasks, I am not going to pull out hot dogs at home, personally. And I do that because if I use hot dogs in my living room, what am I going to use when we go out into the real world and things are really distracting? Now, of course, when we start to talk about something like chicken, cheese, hot dogs, even Zooks or some of this dehydrated meat, you do have to pay attention if your dog has any food sensitivities, if he has a sensitive stomach. Some dogs, hot dogs are not going to sit very well with. Other dogs, they will sit great with. The thing that is nice about the hot dogs and the chicken is that they tend to be very cost effective. So you can buy chicken pretty cheaply, cook it up, and chunk it into cubes. You can cut up your hot dogs. You can get like 99-cent packs of hot dogs, and you can do the same thing with those. The other treat that I use a lot of is Fresh Pet. Or I haven't pulled this out with Leo because he doesn't need something this high value, but a lot of dogs do, and I've used Fresh Pet a lot in the past. So this is Fresh Pet, and it does come in a tube, but I really like the little pre-made nuggets. This is nice because it is a fully formed like dog food. So if my dogs are going to eat a bunch of this, and that means that we're maybe skipping a meal because if we go out into public and they get, 2 cups worth of food or something for training, I'm not going to feed them dinner because I don't want them to get sick or fat. The nice thing about something like Fresh Pet is that it is a dog food. So I know that they got something completely healthy. Now, this is, in my opinion, pricey for a dog food, but if you're using it as a treat, it seems to stack up pretty well to some of the other things like Zooks, for example, or like these Bravo treats. It tends to stack up pretty closely to those price-wise for a training treat. They do say use within 7 days of opening, and they mean it. Now, the advantage to this one is that you can put them in individual freeze, like put a cup or two into a freezer bag and put them in your freezer, and it freezes great, and you can then pull it out whenever you need it. And so that works out really, really well. And there's something else. Oh, yes. Over the course of my career, I absolutely do take cost into account for the dogs I'm training. So if I'm going through a period of my life where, cost is a big factor, then I'm going to use more hot dogs. I'm going to use more chicken because it's important to take that kind of thing into consideration, right? Chicken being more healthy than hot dogs, that kind of thing. When it's not as big of a consideration for me, and I can go a little bit more on the convenience route, then that's where I'm going to use more of these, or I'm going to use more of the Fresh Pet, because it's already pre-cut up for me, and I don't have to go through and cook it or cut it up or anything like that. So those are the treats that I use. And like I said, you really have to pair the treats that you use with what you are asking of your dog. Because one of the really big mistakes that I see is people using a high value treat in a very low distraction environment. And then what do you do when you move to something harder? Then people get stuck and they don't have anything else to reinforce their dog with. Which can be really frustrating. I've been there. I know these things because I've made these mistakes, you guys. I'm speaking from experience generally. So, like I said, the other nice thing about these is that they're very light, and I can store them. I can keep them. I usually keep a bag of these in my car, as well as in the bag that I take shopping into stores with me when I'm working with a service dog, which of course is a different video. If you guys want to know all the things I carry with me when I go do a public access outing, we can certainly do that in a different video. But I do always have a bag of these in my bag, like a backup bag of treats, when I'm working with a novice dog especially. So, like I said at the beginning of this video, though, the treats that you use are very important, and having good kind of food motivation hygiene is very important, and we can do a separate video on that as well. But your training skills and your physical mechanics are more important. I see people a lot of times try to use treats as a band-aid to cover up poor training, or not to cover it, but to compensate for what are poor physical mechanics on the part of the trainer. And that's something, like I said, we have our next free workshop, 4-part workshop coming out the end of the month, and we're going to really focus on training skills for owner trainers so that you can train more efficiently and more effectively, and I'm really excited about it. We've got some really great stuff planned. So I'm going to look through the comments quick and see if anybody has any questions. If you liked this video, if you found it helpful, make sure to hit the like button and then share this anywhere that other owner trainers might find it helpful. Heidi wants to know when are we going to open enrollment for the Academy? We are going to be opening that at the beginning of November. So an opening for the Academy is coming up. Cher says that the list making really helped me developing Mac's list of favorites. Yeah. So when at the beginning of this video, I said one of the things I have all of my students do is make a list, and I want that list to be specific. So all the things that your dog finds reinforcing, and all the things your dog finds distracting, but not food, right? You're going to say Bravo treats, and you're going to say dog food, and you're going to say, pepperoni. You're going to be really specific, and that can really help us choose the right treats for our dogs. Yeah, so then like Valerie mentioned, like dehydrated beef lung, and you can absolutely, and when I've had pickier eaters in the past, and when I was training search and rescue dogs where we needed super high value food as well, you can get like dehydrated lung, dehydrated liver, I mean, you can really, they make some really, like niche-y type of treats, and those can be absolutely great. I'm not using them currently because Leo, I haven't needed it with Leo, so these are the things I'm using more often, but those are also great ideas. Some Cher says we dehydrate. A couple people are saying they dehydrate their own treats, use Fresh Pet. These are all really great ideas, so you can definitely be creative here. You can, one of the things that what always bums me out is when people think, for financial reasons, Bravo treats are out of the question. Because, for example, like this is only 2 training sessions with Leo. And so that adds up really quickly. If this is all I'm using for treats, this adds up really quickly. But remember that, your finances don't have to limit you here. There are lots of options for dog treats and lots of options for high value food. You can dehydrate your own. Hot dogs, like I said, hot dogs you can get them at 99 cents a package. Stuff like that. Okay, yeah. All right, so I am not seeing any other questions. If you do have questions, you can post them in the comments here. You can ask them inside our free Facebook group, Train Your Service Dog with Confidence, which is also where we will be doing that free workshop at the end of the month. So stay tuned for that. And if you want a video on, good food motivation hygiene, so like how to preserve food motivation or build it, we can do a video on that separately. Or if you want to know what's in all my different training bags for different things, I can do that as well. TJ says, is jerky salty? Yeah, so you do have to, of course, take into consideration your health of your dog. And so when we're going to use hot dogs, hot dogs or jerky or something like that, we need to take that into consideration and watch their salt intake and watch how much junk food they're getting and balance it out, which is one of the reasons I love training with dog food whenever possible. And I use Fresh Pet whenever possible if it's going to be taking up a huge amount of my dog's caloric intake in any one day. And then of course, you guys, your vet is a great resource here. If you have food, allergies, sensitivities, your dog has a sensitive stomach, any of that stuff, and your vet can absolutely be your best friend there. So, okay. But like I said, any other questions, let us know. Otherwise, I will see you guys later. Have a great day.